Many times people ask me, what translation of the Bible do I use? And the answer to that question is, I'm not using any translation. When I'm teaching from the Tanakh, the Old Testament, I'm utilizing the Hebrew Bible. And likewise, if I'm teaching from the New Covenant, well then I'm using the Greek New Testament. And as I look at the biblical words, I render them into English, basing them upon what I know concerning the biblical language. Oftentimes, the words in Hebrew have a much fuller meaning than those that we render them into English, and likewise for Greek. And not only the words themselves, but how they are constructed, the grammar. And not only the grammar, but also word order. So in other words, it's only when you pay close attention to the Hebrew and the Greek, utilizing the information that is found in the biblical grammar, then and only then are you better able to understand that text and share the proper interpretation with others. Now, many people would like to be able to do that, but there's a problem. That problem is they do not have the time nor the resources, that is, the money necessary to spend 3 or 5 or 7 years in a theological institution getting their master's and their doctorate degree in order to do it on their own. Well, there is another way, and that other way is the Discovery Bible. Through the Discovery Bible, you will see on your screen, whether it's computer or laptop or tablet, you will be able to have access to the very information that you need in order to understand the passage and arrive at a proper interpretation. And what I'd like to do very briefly with you at this time is to give you an example of that utilizing the Discovery Bible. And the passage that I have selected is from the book of Genesis, chapter 22, and just one verse, verse 18. And through that verse, we can see many of the features of the Discovery Bible. Now, always we need to have a proper context. In this passage, God is speaking to Abraham. And he's revealing a great blessing, what we would call a kingdom blessing to him. And that this blessing isn't just for him, but for all the nations of the earth. Now, why do I say that? Well, let me give you a very literal rendering of the Hebrew text. If we were to translate it exactly into English, this is how it would sound. And they shall be blessed in your seed, all the nations of the earth, because you have listened with my voice. Now, when we look at the first phrase, and they shall be blessed, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, who is they? And the answer is found on into the text, where it says, Ko goyei haaretz, all the nations of the earth. But what I want to share with you is some nuances that we see in the biblical text. First of all, when you look at that first verb, which is the first phrase in the Hebrew language, and they shall be blessed, we find something. If we just looked at it English, we would say it's passive. That is, they shall be blessed. That be is understood as passive, something that I'm receiving, something that doesn't require anything other than God is bringing it upon the person. But we find that this is not the simple passive. There is 2 Hebrew verbal stems that render a verb into the passive. But this is the hitpael. What is that? The reflexive. Now, how to understand the reflexive nature of a verb? Here's a good illustration. I'm sure you'll remember in the book of Job, God asked Satan, Satan, where have you been? And the answer is that he has been going to and fro. That is back and forth. Now, in the biblical language, it doesn't say literally to and fro or back and forth. It's simply one word, but that word is in the hitpael, which is the reflexive stem, which shows a back and forth, a to and fro. So in this passage, we have to find a very important conclusion. We find that it's rendered, this phrase, they shall be blessed, is not in the passive but in the reflexive, because there's a action which brings about a response, this back and forth. Now, what is necessary? Well, notice what is said as we continue on. Usually, in the biblical language, whether we're speaking about Hebrew or Greek, first comes the verb, and then after, the subject for that verb. So usually we have, they shall be blessed, but we're told immediately thereafter who the they is. In this case, all the nations of the earth. So we would render it in English, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. But in between the verb and the noun, the subject of that verb, we have another phrase, which is in your seed. Now, that positioning in the biblical text makes that phrase emphatic, which is it's being emphasized. So, if we want to be blessed, we just don't stand around and hope that we'll be blessed, nor is simply asking for a blessing going to bring it about. Remember, we have to do something to bring it upon ourselves. And what is that? Well, very simply, what the text is emphasizing is that we have to be with your seed, the seed of Abraham. And in this context, we see in the basic meaning that seed of Abraham is the Jewish people, which is a covenant people. In a broader sense, and we see this also within the context, ultimately, how one finds themselves with the people of God is being with ultimately the seed of Abraham. And we learn in Galatians chapter 3, verse 16, that seed of Abraham is Yeshua HaMashiach, that is Jesus Christ. In this passage, when we read the whole context, we see an intimate relationship, a closeness between the covenant people and Messiah. Ultimately, the Jewish people, they are the covenant people. But if they're going to receive that blessing to the fullness, they have to likewise be with the seed of Abraham, that is Messiah. But looking simply at this passage, we find this. The blessing is found for those who are with the seed of Abraham. And that's why those people who ignore Israel, who do not think that there's any role for the Jewish people, they miss out on a good portion of God's revelation to his people. He says here, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in your seed. Now, also pay attention to that phrase, all the nations of the earth. Now, we could have used the Hebrew word midinot, all the nations or countries. We could have used the phrase amim, all the peoples. Both of those words are oftentimes translated into nations in English. But here we find a different word. The word goy, or here in the plural construct, it is goye, goye ha'arts. Now, why the term goy? Well, most of the time, when you look at that word goy, it means a Gentile, a person who is not Jewish, a person who has no covenantal relationship with God. But this term, goy, also appears in Genesis chapter 12, when God is speaking to Avram, who would become Avraham, Abraham, and he tells him that you are going to become a great people. It uses the phrase there, goy gadol, a great people or great nation. So the use of this term, goye ha'arts, wants to tie the passage back to Abrahamic covenant. So the people know that indeed, ultimately, the way that you are with the covenant people of God is through that seed of Abraham, which is Messiah. And we see once more that close relationship between the people of God, the Jewish people, and their call to be a light to the nations and to share that message of the gospel. Here, once more, look at it. And all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in your seed. Well, why? Well, it says at the second half of this passage, Ekev asher shamata bekoli. And pay attention to that phrase, because. Now, once more, there's numerous words that can be used to render into English from the Hebrew the phrase because. We could use the phrase ba'asher or the word ki, many different. But here we use the phrase ekev. Why is that important? Well, ekev has to do with a result. By the way, this same word, if you look at it carefully, it's the same root. It's derived from the same Hebrew root as the name Jacob. What does the name Jacob mean? Well, it means one who follows after, one who perseveres. Remember the story of Jacob and Esau, Yaakov, Esav, in the womb of their mother Rebekah, how they were struggling. And we know that Yaakov, Jacob, he grasped the heel of his brother, wanting to pull him back in so that he could go out first. And what was he holding on? Ekev, that same Hebrew verb or root, which means heel. So we find this word is rich. It has to do with the people of God. It has to do with the promise of God, the reward, the result of God. And therefore, by way of inspiration of the Holy Spirit, instead of using some other construction, some other conjunction in this passage, we find the word ekev because it's so rich theologically. And then we find the phrase shamata bekoli. Now, most of the English Bibles render it because you have obeyed my voice. Well, there's nothing wrong with that if you understand the nature of that word obey. It's not the word obey in and of itself. This would be a different Hebrew word, litzayet. No, this is the word lishmoa. Many of you are familiar with that passage, Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel. So it literally says, because you have heard my voice. Now, the word Shema is hearing, but hearing with a purpose. It's calling someone to listen so that they will respond. So there's nothing wrong with it being translated because you have obeyed, but we don't want to lose the nuance of hearing. Why? Well, because in the new covenant we find faith comes by hearing. And Abraham is exercising faith. He hears God and he responds. Now that is an act of obedience, but we don't want to miss out on the term Shema, to hear, lishmoa. And then finally, there is something else that's important. In the same way that Abraham, he listened and responded to the voice of God, notice what it says. It says, because you have listened, now we would say in English, to my voice. But here, instead of the normal El or Lamed that we would expect, what do we find here? We find the particle bait. Why is that important? Because as I translated literally, with my voice. What does that mean? It's to emphasize that when we hear and respond to the voice of God, it brings us into intimacy with God. Not to, but rather with Him. And there's another final reason. When we look at that phrase in Hebrew, bekoli, we find that that same particle is attached to the phrase, in your seed. So we could translate it, because you have listened in my voice. Now, Hebrew's rich. We have to make allowances into English so it sounds reasonable to us. But when we look and we see these two phrases being utilized with the same Hebrew particle, it's to tie them together. The way that you find yourself in the seed of Abraham is because you have listened to the voice of God. So a small example of how important biblical languages are, and I hope you have seen on the screen how you can utilize the Discovery Bible in arriving at those same conclusions, even if you did not know the Hebrew language or the grammar of Hebrew language. With a little investigation, a little study of the Discovery Bible, learning how to utilize it, you will find that it pays great dividends for you in understanding the revelation of God, so that you can position yourself in the heart of God's will and also be utilized by God in helping others do that same thing, positioning themselves where they can hear and respond to God and find the eternal blessings of God, not in this world, but ultimately in His kingdom. Well, thank you very much for watching this video in regard to the Discovery Bible.